where nature promotes healing and community inspires courage, there you will find Camberwell Grief Sanctuary. Here, transformation through grief is possible. Mark and Kelly Parrish founded Camberwell to help those who grieve believe life can be beautiful again.
For every cause, there's a community to support it. And when it comes to grief, Camberwell is that community. And because there is a person that inspires every purpose served, please tell us about your daughter, Katrin, who is the inspiration of Camberwell Grief Sanctuary.
Go for it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you. We have found that a lot of times people are nervous to ask about our daughter because she did pass, and they don't want to upset us. And what we have found is it's more upsetting to not talk about her. You know, every family wants, or majority of families want to talk about their kids. And that's no different, whether she's in heaven or right here next to us. We're proud of all of our kids and want to talk about them. So for Katrin, it's a joy to talk about her. She was just a gorgeous human, inside and out, very tiny but mighty, and was striking when she walked into the room. People noticed just because she had this glow or this beauty about her. She loved to laugh. She loved to make people laugh, but she had this ability to see a need, to step up if there was somebody who needed to be supported. It was beautiful. And I learned as a mama, watching her, how she loved on people who just needed that extra love. She knew early on who needed that special pat on the back, or if somebody was having a tough day, even as a kiddo. And that inspired me. And she also was super transparent about struggling. You know, she was very real about what she felt and troubles that she had, and she didn't sugarcoat, because she felt if she stepped out and told her story, that other people could maybe benefit or be better. And I think that's always inspired us. As we worked through our grief, we learned what God put in front of us in this beautiful child. How can we carry that forward? And what we found was, if we can make somebody who is struggling and heartbroken, who just needs that extra hand to hold, what a gift it is, and what a way to bring Katrin back, and her legacy and her beauty. You know, it's a gift that God gave us, and it gets to remain if we do it right. So she was definitely an inspiration and a beauty for us.
Right. And she had those therapeutic years. You know, I'm a marriage and family therapist, been doing it for almost 30 years now, but she had those innate years. I've supervised students, and you just look for those students that can just do it, you know, just have the natural gears to be able to know when someone's hurting, or know when someone needs someone to sit by. And she knew no strangers. It didn't matter if you were different, if you were special, she was there with you. And you know, she took some heat for that, but she was not going to change. She would fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Her friends were very eclectic and different and unique, and I think some of them are still lost to this day without her, because she showed up for people when they needed it.
Wow. What an incredible inspiration for all of the work that you're doing now. You know, so with profound loss comes this profound grief. To process your personal loss, where did you begin? Where did you two begin, and where are you now? I just love to hear about this journey that led you to the founding of Camberwell.
Well, for me, I mean, I talk about it because, I mean, I've learned a whole lot, being honest, about it. And I went to school for nearly 6 years, and there's not a single class on grief. I mean, we're attempting to change that, you know, wanting to have people have therapists be trained in grief, because death is going to happen 100% of the time. Now, ideally, it's not going to be tragic or traumatic loss. However, that first year is an incredible blur. Like we didn't even know which way was up. And then the second year, it's worse because it's really real. Like, you really know she's not coming home. I mean, the Christmases, the birthdays, the holidays, the seat at the table, you can just see that she's not here anymore. And then the third year, it starts to get a little better, but it's still a process. I mean, we're still working through it. It's forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was so obliterating. At the time, she was our only child, and we went from being this family to getting a call that changed our life in the split second, and the world as we knew it was obliterated, gone. It changed everything in a flash. I didn't get out of bed. I didn't know how to function. I didn't want to be in society. I was not stable. Everything I thought that was going to be in my future was no longer a plan. And it's very disorienting for a really, really, really long time. And we will never be the same.
No.
But in those early days for us, there were a lot of triggers. Obviously, cars were a trigger. Anything man-made. We spent time in the hospital, so any machine. I didn't want to be around anything that was man-made. I wanted to be in nature. I wanted to see beauty that only God could create, because I was disappointed in the world with everything that happened. So nature became almost an obsession, because I could see beauty again where I couldn't see it for a long time. And exercise helped, because just for an hour or however long, I could get out of the pain in my head and focus on exercising, and that helped. But I think too, we really found that all we had for a while was our faith, which we now know is all we needed. But at the time, we even struggled with that, because everything that we thought the world was and we thought our faith was changing. We knew we loved God, we knew we trusted him, but we were pretty angry with him and what happened. So even that, we had to really dig in and look at scripture and look at our faith said and cling to it. So we kind of had to reinvent and find all these new ways to deal with life that were very different from before. And so I think that was kind of where the original concept, we just started going, gosh, I wish I could get grief support, but I don't want to be in a building that's suffocating. I want to be outside, and I don't want to, I want to exercise, but I want to be able to cry. And if I go to this class and cry out loud, they're going to think I've lost my mind. Same with being outside. I couldn't go to a park and just break down and cry, because the people there would be worried or scared of me. So we just kept going, well, why can't we find a place that encompasses all of these ideas and that would feel safe? If we want to cry, if we want to talk about grief, if we want to tell our story, and it's okay, there's no expectation. And so we started kind of maybe meshing all these ideas together, not knowing in the beginning what in the world it would even look like.
No, and I think we, being outside, people don't really know this, but trees outside promote rest and digest, the internal systems of rest and digest, where, grief is fight and flight. And so if you want to just change the vibe, you kind of go outside and be amongst nature, walk amongst the trees, and you'll, because they emit oxygen, it'll help you on the inside. And, grievers will talk about looking for signs in nature. Katrin had the blondest hair on the planet and the bluest eyes you've ever seen. And so our little visitor was like, we had a yellow bird, and so the goldfinch, which we'd see this goldfinch, and even in crazy trips we'd take, you'd see the goldfinch's feathers turn gray in the winter, but we would even spot the gray ones even in the wind. It was insane. So just with the touch of the gold on them, so we felt like she showed up for us out there in nature. So that was a helpful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful story. Just like finding nature and finding peace there. So
yeah, I'll go a little bit. So, and then
yeah.
This whole Camberwell idea, like I don't even know. So it's a funny kind of story. Camberwell is a butterfly. It originated in England. It's called the Camberwell beauty butterfly, and it actually that butterfly migrated to the United States. But in the United States, it's known as the mourning cloak butterfly, and it's said that the butterfly has a cloak of mourning on it. But we thought that camber, is curve and well as well, and grief is a big curve in your life, and we hope that you could curve well. And so that's where sort of the name originated. We had this idea about nature, but then the name sort of just came one day, and I started chasing some things down. I'm like, this is perfect. And you start searching, and can we do this? And we had an idea in place, but then no place to have it, and even that is the craziest story.
Yeah.
Because, for me, there was ideas also, like I'm an idea person, and Kelly and I went to visit our niece in Colorado, and we had stumbled upon the John Denver Sanctuary, which is a place for John Denver's music that his wife kind of made for him, along with some other organizations. And it's got lyrics on the rocks, and places to sit, places to reflect, places to read, a little water piece that runs through it. And I thought to myself, minus this mountain behind us, we could do all this in Kentucky. Nice. And so that's one, of course you can't exactly find it, and that's even a crazy story in and of itself. So we looked at a couple of other places here in Kentucky, way too expensive, way too much for what we were attempting to do. And then we get this call one day about a property that was going to go on sale that day, I believe. And we were the third person to see this property out of maybe 13 showings, the first of which had offered a cash way above offer. So we're driving around on the Polaris, and the homeowner who built a lot of the place itself
Just
with his
beautiful.
own hands, milled with his own, like the trees on the property, with the beams that are in the pavilion,
the stones
from the land are all created right there. And it was his baby, and you could tell it. And so he asked us, what do you guys want to do with this? And we talked about catering, and he's driving, and there's tears just streaming down this man's face. And he said, it's yours. He says, my best friend, my brother-in-law, died in my arms right there on that hill, and he says, it's yours. And there was no more showings. I mean, and from that moment on, then that's where it all began.
Wow, how incredible, just all this alignment and synergy from the name to the place, and well, thy will be done. Yeah. Wow.
Bigger than us.
So much bigger than
and
that.
so much more beautiful than we could have even imagined. It's humbling.
It used to be a winery, ironically. So it was a winery. So there's this huge hill, and it's, hilly, and trees everywhere, and water. There's the little Kentucky River runs through it. So, and you just walk out there and you instantly feel peace. I mean, it's a little bit of a peace to get out, but not once you drive it. It's no peace at all. It's just
there's therapy.
There's therapy in it.
The trek there.
That's so beautiful. So you have the name, you have the place, you have this, and now it comes to the fact that just as people will grieve in different ways, people heal in different ways. So at this place then that you now had at Camberwell, what different programs do you offer then that support all these different processes that people go through? What do you provide for people to find their way?
Right. Well, there are so many different ways that people grieve, like you said, and there's no right way and there's no wrong way, and even the same individual from week to week can be pretty unpredictable in what they're drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just piece together different components and different elements that, people would come to us and say, this helped me. And the research that we did, we found that we have a hiking trail that people can just hike if they want just solitude. We also have benches, memorial benches along the way. People can come and sit on the bench of their loved one and eat or journal or pray or have a picnic, lay some flowers down by a tree that we've planted in honor of their loved one. But we also offer trauma-sensitive yoga, and that's in our outdoor pavilion. It's beautiful. There's usually a hawk that kind of comes by and checks on us on those mornings. And we do our grief support groups. They're facilitated out in the pavilion. We do, we have massage therapy that is offered. We have what's called Saturdays at the Sanctuary. So once a month, we have all of our specialized programs offered throughout the day. And so that's usually like a retreat day. Once a month, people can come out, and usually they make a day of it. But we also offer individual and family and children therapy. So that's offered different places in our community. Two are housed in different churches throughout the counties, and then one is done at the sanctuary. Then we also offer seasonally, we call it the coffee and conversation night. We build a fire, even if it's warm out, just because we like to build a fire out in our pavilion. And we just sit and get to know people. And that's a favorite, because people who are kind of intimidated to come to a grief group can just come grab a cup of coffee and just get to know the property. There's no agenda. It's just a time to commune with other people. So that's been super successful. And then we have an annual women's tea. We have a men's event, which kind of changes from time to time. And then we have a children's event, which is the most inspiring thing to see, the growth and the hope that kids can leave with. They come so nervous about what the day's going to be and what it's going to entail. And to see them leave with hope and a couple of strategies that they can carry with them, it does way more for the facilitators than it probably does for the kiddos. It is the most beautiful thing to see the transformation. And so that is new to our program, is the children's program. We're so thankful and humbled to be a piece of that. We are in the future building an equine assisted therapy program, and also something that's really exciting is our new capital campaign, which is a wellness cottage, so that we can do year-round programming. Right now, we're pretty much at the mercy of the weather. So, Kentucky is all about the seasons. So we are in the process of a wellness cottage. But to that, the most exciting piece for me, because I'm a kid at heart, is a children's therapy treehouse that we are building in the woods.
Yes, for kids
For
who
kiddos.
lost parents, or to be able to do counseling in a treehouse, which I think will be just absolutely amazing and life-changing.
It's intimidating for kiddos to come anyway.
Yeah.
And the emotions that they carry, if we can at least help them to retain that childlike environment, sometimes the guard comes down a little bit, and it's a little easier to crawl up in a treehouse among the trees and stars or birds and unpack all those feelings, as opposed to a grown-up room. It's going to be a beautiful thing. So those are some of the things that we offer.
We also do celebrations of life. We've had some, a couple or three different celebrations of life where people have left audio messages for the loved ones, and we sit up there and listen to the messages that people left for this person for 2 hours, just like so someone had just facilitated a process and tell me stories, and so we listened to stories in the pavilion. We've also we had someone who passed away that was in a band, and his band came up and played, sang, just as a remembrance for him, and they rode motorcycles out. So like everything's possible there. We want to accommodate as best we can to help people remember and bring a tiny piece of hope out of a very painful situation. So, and those have been special days.
One thing we did not anticipate when we were in the planning phase was obviously the pandemic. And what we found, not at all on our radar when we started, was there were a lot of people that did not get to say goodbye properly or even in person. And that is a trauma upon trauma. Yeah. So to be able to honor their loved one, to have a memorial or a celebration of life, to give them a little bit of closure when they didn't get to say goodbye properly has been very humbling to be a part of, and definitely not what we saw coming, but boy, it's powerful and profound to see the healing and the hope that people can find there, because they, that piece was missing in their story, and we are thankful to be able to have a tiny piece in that as well.
Well, I know that. I mean, if they'd have told us that we couldn't say goodbye to Katrin, and they'd have locked us out of of her room and been able, we'd have been arrested.
Right.
So I cannot imagine those who have had to endure that to be able to say goodbye behind glass or on an iPad, because they weren't able to live physically. You don't want anyone to ever have to die alone, and so that is another one of those pieces that we just don't want to not capture.
Yeah, it sounds like what you've created is something that's not just this special place, but very much a sacred space for people to your point, to find hope, to find a way to heal in terms of their own and in the time of their own, right? Because there's a way to heal and there's a time for to heal. It's all very different for everyone. And that you provide that space. And I think what you do more is not just provide the space, but hold that space. And there's a difference.
Right.
So I was very curious about what you've got going on, the work that you're doing. And so in looking through your website, your beautiful site, I found this message: little by little, we let go of loss, but never of love. And that really struck me. So I guess my question for you both is, what are the different ways that people who are grieving can continue to hold on to that love and not let it get lost?
Right. Again, I think that's unique to the griever. But one thing that we have found that probably is an overriding theme is being able to just give yourself permission to grieve and feel the waves, because it is unpredictable. And I think that a lot of times there's so much shock and pressure that society puts on a griever to get better or to move forward or to be different. And that pressure needs to go away, because we're all gonna ride that wave a different way. And I think you just have to give yourself grace to figure out what that new world looks like. An example would be, for me, everybody wanted to send photos and videos of Katrin as a little girl, and it was too brutal to look at. It reminded me of what I could never have again with her. And it took a lot of work and a lot of time. And now I'm to the point where I want to see those, because I don't look at it as this is something I'm never going to have again. I look at it as I am so thankful I had it at all. And it's a beauty and a gift that I have had it. So there are ways to hold those pieces, to let go of the pain and still carry that. But I think it's a journey that's different for everyone. You just have to give yourself permission and grace to let it unfold in front of you, and not beat yourself up if you regress or if it doesn't look like somebody else thinks it should look.
Yeah.
Again, like it's awesome. I mean, I think that there's so many people do it so differently. It's just like bananas how many people that I've talked to and the roles, rituals and how they go about continuing the love piece. But back to celebrations of life or honoring birthdays and having even time set aside. I usually will ask like, what's the date, and if it's ours, the accident is on 4/2, but then she actually passed away on 4/8. So at 4:02 to 4:08, 6 minutes of just honoring Katrin and thinking about her and praying about her, just thinking about a memory. One of the cool things that Kelly did at our gravesite, or at Katrin's gravesite, was she put a journal there, inside 2 Ziploc bags, and in there it's sort of like write a letter, share a story, share a memory, and it's a place for people to go and actually write. So when they're there, and so there's people that write letters to Katrin at the gravesite. So there's a way to continue to love her, and we can experience people's love for her, through those letters and through the writings. My mother-in-law and just all these different people that visited, her friends, and have picnics there. And so like it just makes the place not so sad, when you can still experience like the loving pieces or the memories or the stuff that you haven't thought of.
Right. I think that's also, it goes right along with the hope piece, because I think before you can even begin to heal, you have to know that there's a hope waiting.
Yeah.
And once you know that one glimmer, that one teeny spark of hope, that carries you into the next piece of how you're going to get help, or how you're going to heal, or how you're going to carry it forward. So
yeah, not to borrow from Elsa and Anna, but there's the next right thing. And I'm such an acronym guy, and you would learn that by being around me. But one of the acronyms that I came up with for grief is RIGHT, RIGHT, even though it's not right, is recovery is the R, and just like it's ongoing process, and it's forever. Like you're going to be forever recovering. The I's immerse, and just like through baptism and being underneath the water, like you immerse yourself in the pain, because the pain will change you. The grief will change you. And then because of that pain, I call it emotional weightlifting, just like going to the gym and lifting physical weight will change your physical body. Lifting grief and emotion every day of your life, knowing how heavy that is, will change you on the inside and allow you to cope with more, will allow you to love more because you appreciate more. And then the H is healing and hope. Healing and hope is restored. You start to heal and you start to get hope again. And then that T is transformation. And that's where Camberwell was created, is to be able to transform the stories, all the people, all the benches, all those, everyone that's up there has a story, and we want those stories to be told so that story might transform someone else and get them out of that spot.
Yeah, for sure. It's in sharing those stories that we can find hope, that we can find healing, that we can find comfort, and just knowing that we're not alone in all of this. So I guess just a final question for both of you. It's for those who are just beginning to grieve, who have just experienced a loss. What advice would you give?
Well, I think about just taking your time. I mean, first of all, let me just say this disclaimer. Like, there's a lot of mass grief illiteracy out there. I mean, about what to do. I'm on a campaign to get rid of "I'm sorry for your loss," because I tell people, I said, I did not lose my keys, my wallet, or my phone. And even though it's a pat phrase that people use a lot, I would rather you say, "I'm sorry." I'd rather you say, "There are no words." I would rather you say, "I'm sorry your life has been changed forever," because it has. And so one of those things that when people are starting that journey, you're just really in a fog. Like you just don't know which way is up. You're not sure what's going to happen. And grief is actually defined as a change in a familiar pattern of behavior. And so, like, in 2020, we all grieve, and grief is also cumulative. So it's like this ginormous pile of laundry. So, like, if you experience a loss of a pet or anything, like it puts another piece of laundry on that pile, and you never wash that laundry. It just continues to pile up. And some people's pile is small, and some people's pile is like so high it would just overwhelm you. Really, if I think about some of the stories of tremendous where people have lost entire families in one accident, or it's just so that those piles can be enormous. So that if you hear of someone like Kobe Bryant or someone that that's famous, or the Queen even, and you watch grief, then it will remind you of your mom, it will remind you of your daughter, it will remind you, so it takes you there. And so, practical steps is drink a lot of water, because you're going to shed a lot of tears. Another one is, just give yourself permission to not do anything. Like some days you have well intention, I'm going to come to the sanctuary, and they just don't show up because grievers are, tricky. They want to, well intentioned, but it's just too heavy that day. I can't carry it. Yeah, and I mean, I think, Kelly's a journaler, and so there's that piece.
Right. I think that's important. Even in the beginning, I think there were days when I just scratched out the page, but it was an outlet somewhere. Again, I think you just have to go easy in those early days, because nothing is going to look like it used to, and you have to give yourself whatever grace that is. If that's sleeping, if that's sitting on the couch doing nothing, if that's going for a run, whatever that is, not putting the pressure on yourself. But I think you have to understand too that you can't stuff it, because grief will come out. So there are a lot of people that want to I'm just going to push through, I'm going to push through. And that might work for a minute, but it will find a way out. And usually it's pretty ugly if it finds its way out and you're not expecting it. So I think that that's a piece of it. I think also just to be practical in thinking ahead of the dates. That was alarming to me. Our daughter had an accident, and then she passed days later. And so we have multiple dates that we mourn, that we know things happened. And those first couple of years, we were in a fight or flight mode, because we knew it was coming and we didn't know what to do. Like, do we do nothing? Do we honor her? And we were too exhausted to plan any event. But I think you have to, again, go easy and know there are dates that are going to trigger you. Christmas or whatever holiday you found special in your family, birthdays, anniversaries. These are all going to be things that at some point you might try to get a plan. I always get a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. This is what I'd like to do. I don't have energy that day. I'm going to do this, or I may do that, but have somewhat of a plan. Also, a good tip that someone told me was, when you go places, especially in the early days, park where you can get out fast. Because you might be in the middle of a dinner party and something triggers you, and you just need to get up, walk to your car, and drive away, and be okay with that. But have that escape plan, because sometimes grief is tricky and you don't know when it's going to hit you. And you learn those triggers as time goes by, but it's always helpful to have somebody let you know those things ahead of time. It helps.
When you do, I count ceiling tiles, I count light fixtures in rooms, like if you're trying to reorient to the now, or you get overwhelmed, like we've been to only a handful of weddings, and during the father-daughter dance, I can get overwhelmed, because just, you place yourself there. And I've changed my philosophy of life. I tell people all the time, if you want to simplify mental health, rewind is depression, and fast forward is anxiety. And so I said, you need to get rid of those two buttons on your remote, and all you need is play and pause. So it's either play or pause. And because rewind takes you back into those memories, and it can really cause you to go down a rabbit hole. And fast forward, like, is negative forecasting a lot of times, and you just start to forecast this negative picture and can't get it out of my head. So I just stay in the moment I'm in, full out, full on. And, you know, men, for example, I mean, if I'm talking to guys out there, guys in grief, you know, our brains are wired to fix problems. You know, if you talk about a problem, our brains go instantly to fix it. And the dilemma for men is they can't bring this person back. They can't fix it. And so men have a real hard time knowing how powerless feels. Like, and I can tell people, you know, I work in grief and addiction, have this tragic relationship with one another where one causes the other and vice versa. You know, grief can lead to addiction and addiction can lead to grief. So, I mean, and I work with both. And I tell people all the time that the pain is not going to kill you. I mean, the pain will not kill you. The grief will not kill you, but substances can, and they do. So, you know, do everything you can in terms of the natural method of going through grief and learning how to handle it, you know, on your own terms and allowing it to change you.
Right.
Yeah, there's a beauty in the ashes. You won't see it in the beginning, but with that hard, heavy emotional weightlifting, God finds a beauty and places it in front of you in places like Camberwell that we never would have known. We certainly didn't see us on this path at all.
No.
But so grateful that we were trusted with a little part of it.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is to the old adage of sharing is caring, and the fact, you know, sharing stories and how that you're able to care for others just in the sharing of what you've been through, of the place that you've built for people to come and to find hope, to find healing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Thank you so much for making all of us just a bit more aware now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. God bless.